Welcome, everybody to the George Mokoena Show live. This is just the show, man, where I get to tell you what I think about some of the stories that have caught my eye in the past few days. Please remember that this is not the only show that is on this channel. I have another live show that happens every Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m. We are here, and that is where you can jump in. That is where I take calls live via TikTok. So please, subscribe here, follow the TikTok channel, do all of those things. Welcome everybody. Like I said, I'm George Mokoena, and I want to talk about a few things today. Okay, so we're going to start it off with the first topic. I'm going to jump straight into it. CAF Pro license versus UEFA Pro license. It's been a talk that has been happening a while. Hugo Bruce spoke about Pitso Mosimane, if I'm not mistaken, and he said that, oh, Coach Pitso, if he had a UEFA Pro license, maybe he would have been accepted that side overseas in the big, in the big place, in the big leagues, right? And this week, in the past week, we had some graduates of the CAF A license program because as part of the new rules over there at the PSL and in SAFA, in order for you to coach in the PSL, you have to have a CAF A license, right? So Coach Tinkler, Coach Hunt, I believe Coach Godfrey Sapula also got their CAF Pro licenses, CAF A licenses that were being celebrated. But this, of course, then brings around the question that how do you rate these licenses next to each other? How do you make sure that if I have a CAF qualification, CAF A, CAF B, CAF Pro, how do I know that that's going to serve me elsewhere? And part of the reason that we bring this up is that we've had CAF Pro licensed coaches, like for example, Pitso Mosimane, struggling to get into Europe, struggling to be benchmarked. And this week, during that graduation ceremony, we got a little bit of insight as to why this happens. Walter Steenbok is the technical director of SAFA here in SA. Walter Steenbok, obviously, part of his job is to run these courses, make sure these guys, the courses are benchmarked well and all of that stuff. And he came out to say that the big problem that is happening between Africa and Europe is that Africa, the CAF licenses, have not been benchmarked with UEFA, right? They have not had the conversation in order for them to check where the levels are. To give you an example, CONMEBOL, the South American Federation, recently got with UEFA, sat down, and they got a way of benchmarking UEFA Pro versus their qualification, CONMEBOL Pro, and also they got access to UEFA, classes, what do you call it, UEFA courses and things like that, that they're going to be integrating into their syllabus. And right now, what happens in Africa is that in terms of the whole of Africa, even CAF Pro was only recently launched. I believe it was launched in 2003, and there's only 3 holders, of which Coach Pitso Mosimane happens to be one of them. So then now, and what the federations on their own, BOSAFA, the associations under the federation do, is that they go and create their own deals. For example, Algeria and Morocco have deals within Europe in order to make sure that their country-specific license is aligned to Europe. Then, of course, we are trying to get in with the Scottish FA. Now, the Scottish FA has produced Abo Mourinho, has produced Abo Arteta, so they're confident that they can do it that way to make sure that at least, man, when you look at our qualifications and you say that the qualification came from South Africa, you can then say that, okay, it's been benchmarked and tested against the Scottish FA thing, and maybe that's a way in. And I think where I want to go with this conversation for me is that, again, we are seeing a situation. We're seeing a situation where CAF is behind, where world football is not aligned, where it feels like everybody is doing what everybody wants, and you can tell the certain federations that have the good of their football in mind. In a perfect world, I would sit here and say that the UEFA license shouldn't matter. The UEFA license is not the best thing. Playing and coaching in Europe is not the most important thing, is not the best thing you can do for yourself. But the truth is that those teams just so happen to be the best in the world. Best facilities, best money, best everything happens to reside in Europe. And for us to grow, sadly, some of our people have to go that side in order to test themselves versus the best, get better, and bring back those learnings. But how can you facilitate that if our licenses are not aligned? If we don't know how far away we are from Europe or how close we are? I had a conversation a few months ago about how do we rank ourselves as Africans when we look at ourselves versus the best in the world. I've spoken about how does Mamelodi Sundowns compare to a mid-table top 5 league team? How does Mamelodi Sundowns compare to a championship team? How do they compare to League 2? But then now to come to find out that those mechanisms of comparison and those mechanisms to make sure that we are not being cheated, for lack of a better word, are not there. Now Coach Pitso, he's got a CAF Pro license, he's working in the Middle East, he's doing all those things, but when he goes to Kokota there, where we want to see him, there's no benchmarking. It also calls to question, what is the value? What is the value of a CAF qualification, a CAF license? Because for me, I sit back and I go, okay guys, why not just go to Europe and get my license there? Because European coaches are certainly coaching here. Coach Bruce is a UEFA Pro, I believe, license holder. So why waste your time trying to get your qualification here when you could just go overseas? I know Atazwan is overseas. I know Dylan Shepherd got his license from that side. So why Coach Hunt, Coach Tinkler, Coach Barker, and all those people, why waste your time getting an African qualification when you can go overseas? And to CAF, how do you leave this as an open loophole where you can't be valued, where we can't upgrade, downgrade, where we can't rank ourselves? Are we doing our own homework? And I understand there are some things that don't exist in Europe. There are some challenges that you're going to face as an African coach that you might not encounter in Europe, across the world. But the truth is that we are in a FIFA-led association where we are all members under it, which also calls to question FIFA. For me, it sounds like people are making up their own curriculums, people are making up their own everything. And then only after going through and saying, okay, now I can go and sit down and see what other people are doing. What does that do to the quality and standard of football around the world? Is FIFA not meant to be the custodian of that football? Is FIFA not meant to be the people that come in and tell us and show us and go, okay guys, this is where everybody is meant to be on the same level? And who must do that job? Who must do that job if FIFA is not going to do it? If CAF is not going to do it? If the associations have to go and find their own connections? How is a smaller African country going to make connections that side? And I know it might be a little bit condescending, but it's true. There's a lot of countries that don't have those resources, that don't have those things. If we are all meant to go make our own connections all over the place without being facilitated by a mother body, the gap gets wider. When UEFA is reviewing and changing and doing all of those things for themselves as the leaders, as the perennial leaders of football in the world, how do we know whether we're catching up as the rest of the world? How do we know that they're doing the right thing and not regressing? So it really is so interesting, man, so disappointing at times to see how far politics play into this. One comment that Walter Steenbach made that really scared me was when he said that, hey, they've still got time, they're still building these things, they're still doing all of this stuff. You don't have time. Now, Baba Coach Pitso's battling and struggling to get into Europe, even though we know their pedigree. Having to go to all types of extra courses, Libo Michela Teta and all of those people, extra courses, in order for him just to try put his head above water. What of everybody else that's going to follow him if this is not fixed right now? If this is not benchmarked? What happens to Coach Rulani? Budding young coach, incredible coach. I think I'm not sure about his qualifications, but can you imagine having a Coach Rulani who is now struggling to take the next step in his career? All because of structural issues. I don't know about you, but it shocked me. Because for me, all this time I was walking around thinking, okay, CAF Pro is the highest qualification you can get in Africa. I guess it's been benchmarked. When Coach Pitso was announced to get it, the picture that I'm using right now, everybody thought, oh, wow, he's taking the next step. Coach Pitso might be back in the continent, might be back in the country. Might be a martyr. I don't know, man. African football, hey, we really need to get in line. And we really need to realize that this is for us. This is for us. This is for the good of football. And when the good of football gets better, that means that everything else gets better. That people start looking at it differently, that resources come, that all of those things happen, that the quality, the standard is brought up. We see it with players. But guys, anyway, that was the first topic that I wanted to touch on. It's just really an irritating thing that administratively we find so many issues when it comes to African football. And I don't think these are incredibly intense issues to figure out or to solve. But we can't be sitting in 2024 and still having these small issues. In any case, let's move on to, for me, a happier topic. It's a happier topic for me. Now, for those who don't know, Coach Dance was suspended. And we know what a suspension means in South Africa. It means you're fired. They've brought in a new coach. He was the coach of Baroka FC. Then he was suspended. Now, in the middle of their playoffs, they've brought in Coach Mamila, who was also suspended or fired in a dubious manner, right? And Coach Dance, last week I came out and I had some harsh words specifically directed at him to say, Coach Dance, it's time for you to wake up and realize that these people use you and you can't keep sitting here and hoping that things will get better. Coach Dance replied, and not to me, but Coach Dance came out in an interview with Marawa, and first he had said that, you know, he was used and he saw that he was used. I like that realization, that he's starting to realize, Guti, these people don't take us seriously. They bring me in, I turn around the team, then chigi, I'm out. Then Coach Dance, later on in another quote, came out and said that at teams, there are puppets in the background. People who walk around. People who tell you to make substitutions, change your starting lineups. People who've got direct access to the chair people within any of the clubs, who whisper in the ear. Takes me back to Coach Morgan Mamila saying that he wasn't fired by Chipa. He wasn't fired by the owner, the chairperson. He was fired by other people within the club that walk around in the club, these ghost figures. These people that whisper. And where I want to go with this conversation is not necessarily about Coach Dance, and kudos to him for figuring it out and standing up. Now we want to see your next move. But the conversation I want to have is one that we need to realize as South African fans specifically. I've spoken many a time on this show and my other show about us thinking that the buck stops with the coach. Us thinking that coaches are the be-all and end-all. That yabona coach masimfayarile and his chinchu coach, it's fine. Meanwhile, there are so many people that walk around in the background. There are so many people, guys, to run a football club is not a 5, 6, 7 people job. It's not a 10 people job. To decide on scouting and to run a development and to make commercial decisions and to do all of those things is not a 10-person job. It's not Bobby, Kemiso, Jessica, Dr. Motaung, and Kaizer Jr. It's not a 5-people job. There are plenty of people who are in and around clubs that we have never heard of. That we have never seen, who make big decisions for each of these clubs. There's people on payroll that walk around. Coach Steve Compella spoke about Elasto Capoenza. Apologies if I'm getting his surname wrong, but he spoke about him. If it was not for Coach Steve speaking about him, I wouldn't know who the manager of Morocco Swallows is. You wouldn't know who this person or that person is. We don't know right now the roles, responsibilities, and the people who are making big decisions within our clubs. And it's up to our Coach Dance to say, guys, ningabheki mina kuphela. How many clubs are suffering, not moving forward, not progressing, not winning trophies, not going to Africa, not finishing in the top 8, not doing all of these things? How many clubs exist that are in that situation? But how many times have you heard of an executive management person getting fired? Outside of maybe Coach Mamila right now was the TD. Who's the technical director of your club? Who's the manager? And these are the things that I think it's important for us, as fans, to learn and to take into account when we speak about our clubs. Last week I spoke about Nabi, or the week before I spoke about Nabi, and I said, for me, Coach Nabi can come, Coach Pitso can come, anybody can come. Great. It's wonderful coaching hires. Mara, what changes are we making in the back? Or are we entrusting the same people that have put us into situations where coaches are being changed left and right, where players are unhappy, where contract situations happen and the clubs are being questioned, where people are not being paid, where sponsors are not... Those are all job descriptions of people that are meant to be in a football club. So then are we allowing those people to stay and still dictate what the clubs do on a day-to-day basis? But insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome. So Nimchinchilu coach, funny enough, sometimes they change the coach. And yet the assistant is still the assistant from 5 years ago. The other person who's sitting on the bench has been there for 7, 8 years. The other people are doing that. The people in the back bafana. How do you move forward? Now, Mamelodi Sundowns, I will use Mamelodi Sundowns as an example a lot. Structure siga Pitso best corner. They set the structure for Pitso. Pitso came in, saved them from possible relegation, won the league the following year, had an incredible, I believe, 7 years at Mamelodi Sundowns where he was doing everything. Everything was great. You could tell they were winning the league every year. Hey, begum nandi. So what Sundowns does is that they went and assessed, okay, because Pitso's leaving, what do we do? Who do we bring in? Who do we fetch? How do we change this? A new technical director, a new academy person. Can we run like this? Can we do that? Can we hold them accountable? Guys, what does Gerald Sbego do on a daily basis? Team manager at Kaizer Chiefs, and he could be the best worker. I'm not saying this to put him down. I'm saying, what does he do on a daily basis that he hasn't done for the years that he's been there? That is changing how the team goes about gaining the success that they keep speaking about. When Kaizer Jr. steps into the sporting director role, yes, he's been in and around football. Yes, he's got an NBA and all of those things. But is he valuable towards the club? Meanwhile, when you look at other places, I'll again use Sundowns as the example. You've got Abotrot Moloto still with the team. Fine. Older head, one of the people that had been with Sundowns for a while. On top of him, you've got Kimang Fleming, the TD. Recently brought in, I think this is his second or third year. You've got the academy head who was also brought in, I think it's his second or third year. I'm forgetting his name, is from Portugal, if I'm not mistaken. On top of that, you've got rulani. On top of that, that structure is so beefy. So how do we hold people accountable that we don't know? And I think it's done on purpose, but I don't want to get there. How do we hold people accountable that we've never seen and we don't know? It just so happens that Kevin Johnson, Mulifinteki, Kemang, Lihlonololo Siema, and all of those people are the front people. They're in the window pane. You can see them, you're looking at them, we know them, you can judge them. Hey, 3 points, how many points, this and that, they've done well, they've won this many games, they've done all of that stuff. So when we get angry and we want coaches out, I'd like to believe that we've got a little bit of thought behind why, we've got an idea about why we want that person gone. But what about the back end people? What about those people whose day-to-day? I asked the other day, Guti, if you are still looking for a coach right now and you're still agreeing with coaches and you're still doing those things right now, there are some people that wake up in the morning, get in their cars, drive to the headquarters of whatever team, and they're there for the whole day. The whole day. And when do we hold those people accountable? When do we say, we've gone through 8 coaches in the last 6 years, we've had 8 coaches. Each of those coaches have only been able to get us maybe a maximum top 6 finish. Number 6, that was the maximum. When do we say, Yazin guys, ngati kono umuntu lapha executive who must go? CEO, what are you saying about what's happening at the club? Technical director, what are you saying about what's happening at the club? Zbanban, what are you saying about what's happening at the club? But we don't know them. So I'm so glad Coach Dentens came out and spoke and said that there's people, there's puppets, there's people in the background who work against whoever's come in, who work against the coach, who work against the players. All the while reporting back up there and telling the chairman, man, hey, ngathi lo muntu akekho right, masim suspend. Lihlonololo Siema gets into top 4 with Skukune. Lihlonololo Siema gets into top 5 with Polokwane City. Coach Dan saves you from relegation, takes you up to a top 8. You possibly win a trophy. He's got a Nedbank Cup. He takes you from a mid-tier, bottom mid-tier team in the NFD and puts you in a playoff. But there's people whispering, "Hi man, mustn't keep it on. Hi Yazini, chairman. I don't like how this person is acting right now." And it's always when they do well. And also we have to ask questions of the owners. What do you say? Ngikhumbula story se Royal AM, when Royal AM had fired John Maduka and Sinki Mnisi had brought in Kabozondo had brought in 10 tens to hold that job for a little bit or whatever. And then apparently when the owners came back from holiday, allegedly, they came back, found these changes and wanted to hold those guys accountable because they didn't approve of a sale. You hear stories of chairpersons not knowing what's happening within the clubs that they own, not knowing good time and guys. So then you also have to ask them that, you're getting reported back by these people who are in the background. Meanwhile, your team is doing well. You start struggling. When do they come in and say, but guys, Nani, what's happening here? Why do you have a club? Why do you own a club if you're not even going to keep up with it? And do these people have so much power that they can supersede and oversee whatever you say? That are running teams with impunity? That maybe I'm shouting at Chipampengesi, but at the end of the day, he's not even making those decisions. How do you guys run your clubs? Every year, coaches get suspended, coaches get moved. New coach must be found. New coach is found. New coach must be moved on. We have to go find another one. New coach comes in, can't even sign players, can't even do anything. Then they're moved out. Meanwhile, there's people who are sitting there quietly running these clubs. I like this. I like this for Coach Tentens. And like I said in the beginning, Coach Tentens, I love that you said South African clubs, because I'm hoping that in your mind you're going, you know what? Maybe South Africa is not all that is built up to be. Maybe I can go test some waters out there in the world. Maybe it's time to look past these South African teams that are going to treat you badly, that are going to suspend you and fire you, Masekshisa. Sometimes not even Makshisa. Sometimes it's going very well, but somebody is unhappy. These someones that people talk about. And maybe contractually you guys are going to come with something different. Maybe you're going to come with stronger contracts and things like that. But it's very interesting to finally, the point I was making, who are these people in the back that are running teams that we don't know, that are deciding people's fates? And while we scream, while we scream looking at these people, Lomuto Seketi, who's been sent out to deal with us, who we see on every day on Supersport, there are people in the house who are sleeping very comfortably. There are people in the house who are living life. Hey guys, what do you do? Even small things. I still don't know what Coach Atazwane's role is at Kaizer Chiefs. Right now, I still don't know. I'd like to assume that we all don't know. So, how do you hold Atazwane accountable within the structure of a team? We need to learn more and know more about our own teams. We need to learn and know more about the people who are running our football. Actually running them. The guys in the back. Because I think to fix our football, we need to really be able to hold everyone accountable and even know them, even down to SAFA level. SAFA has 47 vice presidents, members of the NEC, 47 who sit on an executive, who sit with Danny Jordaan, who sit with Lydia Munyepao, who sit with those people. Asbazi. So while you're crying about Danny Jordaan being re-elected, they caught him, they brought him in again. We don't even know the people who are voting. We don't even know the people who sit in AGMs. We don't even know the people who are deciding things and voting yes and doing all of those things. We don't know them. Whereas maybe, just maybe, if we zoomed in on everybody else and we could put pressure at that level, and we could look at your LFA, the people who are in your LFA, and say, "Hi man, why ni votele lo muntu? But the truth is we don't even know them. So at every level, guys, at every level, we face the same issues. Lack of knowledge, a lack of transparency from the leagues, from football. And that's why nothing's getting fixed. You can change tires as much as you want on a car. But if your engine is not you're not going to go anywhere. You can wash it, it can be clean, it can do everything, but by the time you need to get inside there and drive. So for us, we're changing tires, we're changing everything, we're washing the external. But when it comes down to it, there's a lot of things internally at our football clubs that are issues. A lot of people that are in the clubs that are not doing well enough within their roles. Some might say are stealing a living. But in any case, guys, thank you so much. Well, I'm going to move on to the next topic. We're going to talk about Stellenbosch. And I want to talk about Stellenbosch from this perspective. We all know Stellenbosch FC is going to be playing in Africa. We know that Stellenbosch FC has positioned itself as a team that wants to take the next step, that wants to compete with the big boys, that wants to, hopefully in the next 4 or 5 years, become a big team in their own right. So, can't be surprised. I'm shocked when we're hearing rumors of players moving out. We've heard rumors about Adams. We've heard rumors about Reyners. We're now hearing rumors about Toure, one of their star centre backs. We're hearing rumors about all of these players. And I find myself thinking, what do you want to do? They asked the CEO of Stellenbosch about players leaving and all of that, and he said, he didn't want to say too much, but, and I'm paraphrasing, he didn't want to say too much, but basically also said that, teams all over the world sell players, it's hard to keep a hold of everybody, it's hard to do this, and da-da-da, and da-da-da, and da-da-da, and da-da-da. But just a couple of months ago, Coach Barker had come out and said, we made a decision to move in a different direction. They had made a decision that they would stop selling players. They would try get a core team that is going to stay with the Stellenbosch. And I know it's premature. We still have to see how it moves. I'm just worried about the things that I'm hearing. But anyway, he said he wanted to get a core that was going to be with the team for many years and a core that they could build around and trust to stay with Stellenbosch. Guys, I don't know, again, what advice Stellenbosch got from Mamelodi Sundowns. But we've seen what African competition does to teams that are not experienced in it and also are not willing to finance things. We've seen what happens to them. We saw Imarumo Gallants get to, I believe it was the semi-final of the CAF Confed and be relegated in the same year. We've seen Abo Royal AM, Amazulu flying high. Then they go into continental competition and they drop. But really, what I want to have this conversation about is, are you serious about what you say you want to do, or are you not? Mamelodi Sundowns might shed some players, but Mamelodi Sundowns brings in, you would say, at the same rate that they let out. Sometimes they bring in more than the people that they've let out, so that they can have a competing squad. And that takes money. That takes resources. You look at the Pirates, hardly is selling players, might even loan players out. They bring in players and do all of those things. Why? Because they are not a selling club, they're trying to move forward. But if at this moment you are unwilling to say, guys, here's my team, Ungahambi Tore. Here's a contract that we can give you that can keep you here for 5 years. Here's a contract, Adams, that can stop Mamelodi Sundowns from looking at you. You heard Coach Barker coming out and saying, oh, he'd much rather go overseas at this point. No, what are you guys doing? Can't you give him something, man? Bamba. Let's make it worthwhile. That's what you need to do if you want to compete with the big boys. In fact, not only are you meant to be keeping Abo Tore, Nabo Igreinas, Nabo Adams, Nabo Titus, and all of those players, not only are you meant to be keeping those guys, you are even meant to be adding more. But like people always say to me, a lot of the PSL teams are selling teams. A lot of the PSL teams feel like they need to sell to survive. Guys, Stellenbosch is owned by the Stellenbosch Academy of Sports, which is owned by Remgro, which is owned by Johan Rupert, richest man in Africa. That's not a team that is pining for money. And I know they chose a model where they wanted to be frugal and develop and all of that stuff. Yeah, but now you're knocking on bigger doors. If you want to go compete with these guys that you guys are saying that you want to go compete with, those guys spend Ahly's budget. For example, Ahly's budget, the top team in Africa, is $88 million, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was $88 million a season. Convert that into rands. Mamelodi Sundowns is out here buying 51 million rand players, 46 million rand players. They're bringing in about Divide Lunga, about Obas. They're bringing in about Lodge. It's bringing in to bolster the squad so they can go do what they need to go do at a high quality level. Stellenbosch, when you sell Toure, are you going to be able to bring in 2 players that are going to be able to give you that level, that standard when you go play in Africa? Abo Amazulu. Remember when Amazulu finished second with Benny? What was Benny's complaint? Benny's complaint was, guys, I need more funds. I need something. And Ubab Zungu said that money is the furthest problem from Amazulu, for example. So then, at what point, man, do you make the next step? At what point do we have teams that are serious enough to go? We need to go fight Sundowns. We need to go fight Ahly. Sadly, that's money. Supersport complains about resources all the time while being owned by MultiChoice. So MultiChoice, if they wanted to, could have apportioned the budget to Supersport that is far bigger, or close to, let's say close to a Mamelodi Sundowns, a thing that Gavin Hunt always complains about. We can't all be selling teams. We can't all be give it up and try and make money through these sales teams. You look at serious leagues. Manchester City spends a lot of money. Arsenal has spent a lot of money. Liverpool might not have spent in comparison to them a lot, but they've spent money in comparison to the other teams in the league. What's our buffer? Because right now, Mamelodi Sundowns is first by far. We don't even have a second place team that consistently goes into CAF competitions to go represent us. Do you guys understand that? Consistently. We don't have a consistent, okay, I'll give it to Skukune second year in a row. Supersport is usually the people that represent us, but we don't have a consistency there or a consistent growth. Supersport takes part in X amount of CAF confeds, but then every day we hear Coach Gavin Hunt complaining that these players that they're selling my best players. If Tito was here and Masego was still here and this one was still here and that one was still here, where would we be? So are we progressing and moving forward? And now I'm looking at Stellenbosch and saying, guys, you've won your first trophy. You're going into Africa proper for the first time. You've shown consistency. Now it's time to take the next step. Chigi, we hear stories of players that might be leaving. And again, it's premature, I know. They could have changed everything and then surprise us all. Who knows? But going by words, it's very worrying to hear these sentiments being shared. I love Stellenbosch. I love what they're doing down there. Marawa Shotaka, if they could get the right cash injection? The right cash injection. We could be talking a different story about Stellenbosch. Supersport, if they could get the right cash injection from their owners, we could be talking a different story. Gavin Hunt is correct. If he kept all of those players, what happens? Now, I'm not asking the whole league to go out and build mega squads and spend all of that money. But there are some teams, Cape Town City, there are some teams who are right there and have been right there for so many years, guys. How many times have we expected Cape Town City to then have the year? How many times have we expected SuperSport to have that year? Recently, to go out and win the league and step into Africa and create a presence there. How many times have we've been waiting, man? What Pirates? We've been waiting. I'm not going to talk about that other team, but we've been waiting. Guys, our teams, if I can speak directly, guys, we need you guys with Sundowns to up the level of the game. We need more of you guys to be able to contribute 8, 9, 10 players towards Bafana. We need those things. We need you guys to take the next step so that your own teams can go out and gain the experience necessary outside, so that we can look at you and put you with Sundowns and say, yeah, I need to go and pick SuperSport players, because SuperSport players have the requisite CAF Confed, CAF Champions League experience. Stellenbosch, your players have the requisite CAF Confed, CAF Champions League experience, so that we can pick you guys and stop making it a league where you have to send those players to Mamelodi Sundowns for them to go and develop them and take them to the next level. For them to go and polish these players. And it might take a loss. It might take, guys, putting together funds and things that you don't know. It might take a blind cost that you're bringing in right now. But you know why Mamelodi Sundowns is the Mamelodi Sundowns we speak about today? It's because for whatever reason he was doing it, Patrice Motsepe was so committed to that team that he went through the teething problems, that he went through the spending things, that he went through all of that stuff with the goal to go to Africa. And he did it with the goal to be a fixture in African football. And we've heard the words. We've heard you guys speaking about, no, we want to win the league, no, we want to catch Sundowns, no, we want to go and play Champions League, look at the Sundowns example, yeah. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your money where your mouth is. Progress, grow. Coach Benny is a Manchester United coach right now. He was here in KZN. Right here, KZN, coaching Amazul. Got them to number 2. Ask for players. Ask for the next thing. Ask to move forward. Ask for chartered flights. That one we've heard from Gavin Hunt. That's how you become better. But anyway, guys, just so that I don't take too much time, our teams need to really pull up their socks. Our teams need to really show us that they're actually committed to us, and it's not just talking. It's not just for the sake of talking that they're doing whatever they're doing. Last topic for today that I want to speak about. And I want to start it off by saying I am not talking directly about Urile. I want to talk about comments made. So, Urile Mfukeng is obviously a Pirates star. He's a starter. He's incredible. He scores goals. He plays with a maturity that is far beyond his age. Yes, there are things that he needs to clear up, but he plays. When Bafana was playing in these two games, Zimbabwe and Nigeria, a lot of people came with the sentiment that they need to be protected. They need to be protected. They are not ready. We need to make sure that we don't kill their careers and all of that stuff. And sometimes it feels like it's the prevailing sentiment of young players in South African football. Nah, we can't, don't rush him. Eh? Don't rush him. What will happen if this? What will happen if that? What will happen if that? Will he be able to bounce back from this? Will he be able to do this? Will he be able to do that? And personally, I think that attitude is what lands us in the situation we have, where a person is a youngster at 25, still got things to learn at 26. We're still waiting for him to get to his peak at 27, at 28, at 29, 30. I had a conversation with somebody the other day where we spoke about Umkhulise. And I was like, do you understand that Umkhulise is a 28-year-old? They were like, no, man. He's a Umkhulise. He's a youngster. And I was like, no, he's 28. We even looked it up. We pulled it up and I was like, that man is 28 years old. So if you're still waiting for his potential at 28, when he's 36, then we'll see it. We sit with a situation where you have a Themba Zwane who only caught fire, at 27, 28? Who now has the team on his shoulders, like Bafana, for example, at the age of 34, I believe he is. Is he 34? Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. That's why we sit with this issue. Now, I understand when you say to me, maybe the situation is not right. Maybe we don't have the senior players who can guide some of these youngsters through some of the tough parts of being a player, some of the pitfalls, some of the dangers. I understand you. I understand you saying maybe at Kaizer Chiefs that don't throw Mfundo Vilakazi into the fire because right now he's going to be asked to hold everything. I had this point a couple of months ago. But if we're sitting in a South African system where your worry at 19, at 20, at 21, at 22, if we're sitting with the idea that those guys are not ready at that age, then what have we been doing? Guys, there's youngsters playing all over the place. Abo Messi Lava made their debuts at 16. Abo Mbappe, I know Saka came in at 17 if I'm not mistaken, at Arsenal. We used to have that. Abo Swahla coming in at 15 years old. Abo Penny leaving South Africa at 17, 18 after having 2 years under his belt. After playing for 7 stars. We watched youngsters coming in and playing in our league and growing and doing like that. Our Pirates, our Chiefs bringing in readily made players at 17. So for me, it brings two questions to my mind when we speak about the youngsters. Number one, what is happening at development level? What is happening at development level that is stopping these players from being ready when they step onto this pitch? When I'm 17 and it's now my time to jump and make the next step, what is making it that they're not ready? Think about the players we've seen come in young and just already fit in and play with a maturity and understand tactics and know all of those things. That's a function of development. That's a function of making sure that these guys get the necessary tools so that when they make the jump, they are ready to go into that team. I don't remember a junior khanye needing 3 seasons at Kaizer Chiefs first team in order for him to, get used to the thing and play. He came in and played almost immediately. But it's the difference that back then, that development was so, strong, was so, they took care of so many things that we weren't getting half-baked players. Is it maybe because at the time, there were only a handful of developments? So even with those developments, man, you had to go pick the best of the best. You could pick the best of the best and fill out a school because there was only a handful of you guys. And, and therefore, you could build it. Excuse me. You could build it. So what is happening now? That Ravundusha jump into a first team and have to then go play DDC games a year later. And a lot of these teams that are developing youth are not doing it because it's a love of the game and all of that stuff. They're doing it because it's a necessity. I spoke just now about Stellenbosch and Supersport and all of those guys. The reason why they need to keep creating these players is because Ziawa. And even then, those players, you see different players when they land at Sundowns. For example. So are we doing enough in the developmental structures? And then number two, are we doing enough when they get to the first team? I see so many teams that have experienced players, older players. But is it a fertile ground for me to bring in somebody who's young and make sure that you guys are going to look after him? And by looking after him, yes, there's a mentorship side. There's a side where no Ntwana Friday is hlalele ekhaya, no Ntwana, teaching him those things. But there's also on the field. How many teams in the PSL can say that they've got their departments down 80-90%, where you can fit in? Because part of the reason why Lamine Yamal is doing what he's doing, why Abo Saka were doing what they're doing, why Abo Rashford at the time were doing what they were doing, and all of those things, is because when you come into my team, I don't expect you to be a star. I expect you to play your role. Konita, Abantu that have been here, they will tell you what to do on the pitch. They will take care of different things. There's a Patrick Mabedi in defense who's the captain. He's going to take care of his role. That one's going to take care of his role. They're going to teach you how to play this game. They're going to do all of that stuff. Meanwhile, in a lot of teams are asking these youngsters to walk into places where you must be the grown-up. And there's a lot of things they have to learn. But more importantly, a trust factor. Puso Ditejane was one of the star players in the DDC. Puso Ditejane was an incredible right back for Kaizer Chiefs. Then, of course, they had that whole falling out over the ball boy stuff, and he didn't want to be a ball boy. He felt like he needed to have progressed into the team, rightfully so, and all of those things. Got released, arrived at TS Galaxy. Now he's a starter. arrived, you see them break into teams and become starters elsewhere and become and play when they are trusted. Are we not trusting these youngsters to play? And the ones that are being trusted, like I said before, is push comes to shove, and they don't seem to be getting the type of development you need in order for them to be in the thing. They're not playing in teams that are maybe successful enough to go and chase the biggest team and maybe give them other exposure and other different challenges. We can talk about that. But are they trusted in general? And how do we receive that trust? Where I will agree with a lot of people when they speak about the fan side, they always say that the fans are toxic and the fans are the ones that, you don't want to expose this player. True. I'm not going to lie. Which is why the other part of this, outside of development, the player themselves and the team, now we have to look at ourselves. Are we willing to watch Rile come out versus Nigeria, get embarrassed, let's say he got embarrassed? Are we willing to not come out screaming and shouting and to say, Yazini boy, well done. There'll be other games. We're going to protect you. I know with my team, we call for the kids every day. We call for them and we say, why isn't Vilakazi playing? Why isn't Zwane playing? Why isn't Shabalala playing? All of those people. But are we also, as a football consuming public, are we also willing to go, it didn't go well? Let's be patient. It didn't go well. Let's put our collective arms around this player and protect them. Which is why I agree somewhat to those people that say it. But for me, just play the youngsters, man. We talk about risk and reward. What are most teams risking? Are you risking a 22-point lead versus Mamelodi Sundowns, where Sundowns has won the league? Are you risking that game that you lost 5-1 the other day, that game that you lost 3-0 the other day, with your so-called experienced players who have not even been able to get you into a top 8? What exactly are we risking? And is the reward of that risk not way more lucrative than the losses? If I have a 16, 17-year-old that is ready to play in the PSL, that is ready to start in the PSL, and they're playing games, even those selling clubs, imagine what you could get in return for that. Ujomo showed us a long time ago, but anyway, imagine what you could get from that. Over and above the fact that now you'll have a 16, 17-year-old in 3 years' time who will have played X amount of games and have so much experience that your first team, you could be set for a good decade with some players. That bafana could be set for a very long time and create a pipeline of quality players. The rewards are so much bigger. But if a 19-year-old Pirates player, we are afraid of him playing for the country at that age. If a 19-year-old DDC player, we are afraid of him coming into the first team and playing, we'll continue having 26-year-old youngsters. We'll continue having people who are not ready, mabangena. We'll continue having those things. We'll continue having to rely on people in their late 20s and 30s for a national team. We'll continue struggling to send our players into other leagues across the world where they could get more experience, where they could get more things. Right now we're speaking about Salem Dow. We're speaking about Salem Dow. I actually want to pull it up. We're speaking about Salem Dow and him needing to go overseas and all of those things. Sela Mdau, Khuliso Johnson Mdau, according to Google, was born on the 26th of April 1995 and is 29 years old. Best right back in Africa. Where is he going to go? Is he going to go into the biggest leagues? Is he going to play for the biggest teams and have a 2-3 year stint where he can grow? Under 32 when he leaves. When more players could be playing at 17, 18, 19, so that by 20, you know, the other night we watched Marawa, is it Marawa? The Wolves player. He's 20. Go Wolves. He's leading Zimbabwe, and I know the comparison, but he's leading Zimbabwe. 20 years old. Already that side. Abu Penny. Leaving here to go overseas at 18, 17, 18. I believe Benny was playing for Bafana at 17, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. Got to go to Porto, got to go to all of these different teams, even landed Kobo Blackburn at 26, 27. Prime ages. But Tina, nangu Sailor. Sailor was playing for Black Leopards. Sailor was doing all of those things. Finally got properly, quote unquote, developed or whatever at Mamelodi Sundowns. He's 29. Where's he going to go? He's 29. Abu Shabalala Lava, wanting to go overseas at 28, 29, could only get a move to Israel. No disrespect to Israel. Could only get a move there, played there for a little bit, had to come back home. Because you're older. My closing remark is that we need to trust these players. And it's not all of them that are going to work out. It's not all of them that are going to set the world alight and go overseas and do all of those things. Some players will be local. But it will be a local 24-year-old with 7 years experience. As opposed to a 24-year-old, oh no, you know, he's still growing and he's still learning and he's still doing whatever. We need to trust these players. And I think we're being a little bit overprotective. That's what I think. I think we are gearing ourselves towards the worst case scenario. And sometimes, guys, for the most part, it's not the worst case scenario. They'll land, they'll find their feet, whether it's, again, overseas, whether it's here in the PSL, they'll find their feet, but give them a chance. Guys, that has been the show. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. It really does help. The interactive show where I get to speak to you guys is going to be at 7 p.m. So you can watch it either on YouTube, I've got horizontal and vertical, or you can watch it on TikTok. The nice thing about watching it on TikTok is that at least there you get to follow and call in. You get to request and give your voice to the show. I can hear you, I can speak to you live. So that's the nice thing. It is a live interactive show. So please check that out. If you want to watch any of the previous episodes of that or even this show, they are available in full on YouTube. And you'll be able to, you know, talk to me in the comments and all of that stuff and see how we are. And should you so feel and confidence, I trust you. I'm not gonna wait for you to grow up in talking. Like, jump in and let's have a conversation. Guys, it's been great. I'll see